So again, we're at the stage where Republicans don't even want to answer questions, or if there are Republican members somehow in the Trump administration who stand up, they go and just attack them. Let me just show you what I mean. You've got a Republican Majority Leader, John Thune, in the Senate. He's asked a very basic question about Brendan Carr, the FCC chair, threatening companies that if they don't speak the way Trump wants them to speak, that they'll lose their licenses. So I think it's a fair question to ask Senator Thune, the Majority Leader. What do you make of that? He just walks away. Here, let's play this clip.
Depends on what happened. Is it appropriate for Brendan Carr to threaten the companies if they didn't take action?
Find you guys.
Then in the Senate, you have the Republicans just attacking the CDC leadership that they voted for very recently. I mean, as our healthcare is on the line, as we see this newly reconstructed vaccine panel that RFK Jr. created after gutting the one that actually includes scientists, take away, vaccines from children for like measles, mumps, rubella after doing the same for COVID. I mean, as parents are really fearful, like what the heck in the world is going on? You have the former CDC chair and her chief medical officer. They testified in the Senate this week. And you had Ashley Moody, who was the pick by Ron DeSantis to be the senator in Florida after Rubio became Secretary of State. Her questioning was kind of so bad and offensive as she's attacking Trump's own pick that you had Senator Cassidy of Louisiana basically step in and just said, I'm not really sure what you're even talking about. Here, let's play this.
You have this whole network of people that's trying to embarrass the president or go after the president, and now you are joining this group. Why don't you want to give their names?
Their names have been publicly associated with them. They issued public remarks early on.
Let me ask your colleague. I've noticed they've also been giving you notes too and whispering to you. Will you state their names?
So their names are Abby Lowell and Mark Zaid.
That wasn't too hard. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I really was genuinely asking so that the record was clear.
And that was her lawyers. What do you mean embarrassing the president? She was the president's pick. She was just talking about how she was fearful that when you start to have people who are not scientists setting vaccine policy via social media posts, there could be major problems there. One other quick one I'll show you right here is you got Senator Markwayne Mullin, who tries to trap the former CDC director who Trump picked and said, we secretly taped you. We've got you on tape, which I'm not even sure the legality of that. And then Senator Cassidy had to step in again. A Republican Senator Cassidy said, if you got the tape and you didn't turn it over, what are you doing here? And it seemed that this was like Markwayne Mullin's way of trying to trick her. Here, play this clip.
Ma'am, it was a recorded meeting. So you can testify one way, or you can prove that you're lying or going to be honest with this committee. I'm giving you the opportunity to be honest here because you've been really walking around the edges and not being truthful. So did he ask you the question, can he trust you? And your answer was?
He told me he could not trust me. And I told him if he could not trust me, he could fire me.
That isn't how that conversation went.
That is how the conversation went. This is so bizarre. I want to call on the top Democrat on the House Energy and Commerce Committee, Congressmember Frank Pallone. First time on the MeidasTouch podcast. It's great to see you here. Look, you've been very outspoken in your 3-decade plus career in the House for protecting people's access to health care. And you've also been very vocal about bringing energy prices and making them affordable. Both are under attack right now, but let's start with healthcare. As I show you those clips, and it's framed by Republicans as, why would you embarrass Donald Trump as though it's some personal thing to Donald Trump while we suffer? What do you make of that?
I mean, the problem is that we're in crisis, Ben, right? That free speech is in crisis. A guy like the FCC chair, Carr, he shouldn't be trying to tell broadcast networks what to put on TV. I mean, it's a violation of the First Amendment. And the healthcare our healthcare system is in crisis because of the Republicans' big ugly bill. People are going to lose their Medicaid. People are not going to be able to afford the Affordable Care Act because they're getting rid of so many of the tax credits. The system is collapsing. Energy prices, you mentioned, are going through the roof. New Jersey, they're up like over 20%. And we had bills this week on the floor which are only going to make energy prices even more because they want to get the Trump administration wants to get rid of any clean energy alternative. And, the American people are suffering. But I just think that the impression I get from the Republicans is they just don't care. Or if they do care, they're afraid to contradict the president because as he becomes more authoritarian, more like a dictator, they're fearful of him politically and otherwise. And it's just a real bad situation. And the only thing we can do as Democrats is continue to speak out like I'm trying to do here on your show and say, look, this is all unacceptable. This is hurting the American people. This is threatening our democracy. And it's just unacceptable.
One of the areas where you've been outspoken, you're a Congress member from New Jersey. And so same way, I grew up in Long Island, and lots of people in my high school had parents who worked in 9/11, who worked in the Twin Towers at the time. The fact that Republicans and Trump are not keeping their promises for 9/11 first responders and their health care, which is to me, all healthcare is sacrosanct, but you're talking about 9/11 first responders. And, last week was, of course, the 24th anniversary of 9/11, but this doesn't get enough attention. So I wanted to highlight it here, but to me, it speaks to the broader issue of the cruelty because they're going after 9/11 first responders. Your Affordable Care Act tax premium. I'm not sure they're going to keep that commitment either.
Well, it's just, as you say, one of the most extreme examples of how Trump and the Republican leadership in Congress do not care about the average person. Look, just by way of background, after 9/11, we set up, and I was part of it, a healthcare program, a free healthcare program for both first responders and people who survived, who lived in New York or nearby and were impacted by the toxic fumes or whatever toxic elements existed after 9/11. And these programs or clinics exist in the New York and New Jersey metropolitan area, but they can also get care if they're in California or other places as well, free, particularly for this type of these sort of toxic mix that's created a research program and other types of cancer that we didn't know about. So what happened is when Trump came into office, he basically fired and eliminated. He fired a lot of the people that worked at these clinics. He jeopardized the future of the clinics and their ability to function. And then he came back, we had Democrats and Republicans got together and complained about it. He came back and said, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. But we have no transparency, which is the biggest problem with this administration. So to this day, I don't really know whether the people have been fired, whether or not the research programs have ended. I know that the committee that deals with this has decided not to certify any new diseases as eligible, or any of the people that have these diseases as eligible for care. We know that, but we just don't get answers. And this program has been seriously jeopardized. Extreme example of not caring about people's health care, even those patriots who came to New York from every part of the country and as a result were seriously injured. It's just unacceptable.
And talk about your oversight, how you're able to even try to do it with someone like RFK Jr., who's not a scientist, who's not a doctor, who doesn't have a medical background. Now we know from hearing the whistleblowers who are the Trump picks at the CDC that RFK would not even want to listen to the doctors, that they would try to get the information in front of him just to say, hey, we're the top scientists in the country. That's why we have this position. Maybe just take a read of this. No one else has access to this level. And then he wouldn't even read. He wouldn't even acknowledge their existence. So talk through that process, because while you've been on the Hill for, again, quite some time and in leadership positions, you've dealt with people before who I'm sure you disagree with, who hold those positions. But there's a difference between disagreeing with people who are still qualified and trying to conduct oversight on someone like RFK or any of these other Trump picks who affirmatively want to destroy the very thing you're conducting oversight of.
Right. Science is out the window with RFK Jr. He doesn't care about science. He doesn't want to pay attention to science, to experts on science. He just throws it away. Best example of that is today and yesterday, this vaccine committee that would make recommendations about what types of vaccines people should take. He fired them all. He replaced them with all anti-vaxxers, right? And now they're meeting yesterday and today and making more and more recommendations that basically say that we shouldn't use certain vaccines for kids, for pregnant women in general. And everything that he's doing totally is against the scientific evidence, right? So within the last 24 hours, he suggested that certain types of vaccines that we've been using for kids when they're first born or after they're born should not be administered until they're 4 years old. With COVID, he's recommended that unless you're over 65 or you have certain pre-existing conditions, you don't need a COVID booster. There's no evidence for any of this. None of the scientists, none of the medical societies or experts are agreeing with any of this. But the consequence is that people are going to be afraid to take vaccines. They're going to not give the vaccines to their kids. The insurance companies won't cover the vaccines because they go by the recommendations of this committee. And people are going to die. I mean, people are going to die. They're going to die from measles. They're going to die from COVID because of this quack. I mean, he should be removed. Trump should just remove RFK Jr. because he doesn't know what he's doing, and he just keeps ignoring the science.
The commonality, though, seems that whether it's an RFK Jr., a Kash Patel, a Brendan Carr, an Energy Secretary Chris Wright, whether they're just completely incompetent or intent on destroying the thing they're regulating, it seems that that's the case, which is why I want to bring it quickly to Energy Secretary Chris Wright. I mean, I've spoken to Connecticut Governor Lamont. I've spoken to, lots of people who are going to be would have been beneficiaries of a lot of these wind energy projects that are almost ready to go, where now those jobs are lost, and then you're not going to get the benefit of the energy creation that's going to be there. I mean, as you have an energy secretary who adopts Donald Trump's quackery, that Donald Trump goes, I don't like wind, real. Like it's not even a logical argument. He just doesn't like wind because he had a golf course and he didn't like the windmills in Aberdeen. And as a result, now we fall behind the rest of the world on an energy source that actually does work. It's just wild.
Well, when you say quackery, that's exactly the way it is. I mean, Trump keeps saying, well, I don't like the way solar panels look. I don't like the way windmills look. What the hell does that have to do with what we have to do when we have an energy crisis? I mean, the price of electricity keeps going up. As I said, in New Jersey, it's up like 20%, but that's true across the country, right? And so they've taken the position, because of Trump, right, has taken the position that we're going to either eliminate renewables like solar or wind altogether, or we're going to make them not a priority, right? So we had 3 bills just yesterday on the floor of the House, came out of our committee, which basically says that if you want to hook up to the electric, to the energy grid or electricity grid, you've got to really just do fossil fuels. You can't use renewables. Another one that said if you want to build a pipeline to Canada or Mexico, you don't have to have any environmental review. Just go ahead and build it, right? I mean, this is what we're getting. And again, it's not based on what is important for the American people to keep things affordable, because if you don't have an all of the above energy policy that says, look, we need more energy and we're going to use nuclear, we're going to use renewables, we're going to use fossil fuels. If you reject that, then you're eliminating a lot of new types of energy generation, and prices are going to go through the roof. And the environmental aspect of it as well, because renewables don't create the environmental problems that burning oil and gas or coal have. I mean, one of the bills yesterday was to try to bring back coal in all its glory. Well, the industry doesn't even, the price of coal is so high that that's going to send your electricity bills through the roof. If you got to buy coal and burn coal, not to mention the environmental aspects, because, we have a climate crisis, but they, of course, say that that doesn't exist. The planet's not warming. Again, the science, who cares? We don't care about science. We don't care if everybody says that, there's a climate crisis. We just ignore it.
Congressman, before we go, I do want to address that. Look, Donald Trump had objectively made some progress into New Jersey in the 2024 election. You looked at his numbers. They were better than, was expected. But he made a lot of promises about affordability, about groceries, about making people's life in New Jersey instantly better. And he made a lot of, it reminded me of when he made a lot of promises to the people of Atlantic City and then screwed that up big time. And he came back to Jersey, did it again and said, well, here's what I'm going to do. Here's my encore, if you will. And to me, it's a larger version of kind of what he did in Atlantic City, where it's not just the people of AC who are the mark, it's the whole people of New Jersey and everybody in the United States. And by the way, the people in Vegas right now, in the recession that they're having over there, or even worse right there, was tourism is crushed, I think is seeing what he did to Atlantic City back in the day as well, when he caused all of those jobs to be lost. So before we go, maybe speak to that, especially being a guy from Jersey.
Well, I think a lot of people thought that he was going to address the affordability issue. And they said, well, inflation's up, grocery prices, egg prices are up. And so, we need to change, right? But the bottom line is that everything he's done in the last 8 months since he's been in office has actually done the opposite in terms of affordability, whether it's grocery prices, whether it's healthcare, insurance, whether it's energy prices. Everything keeps going up because he basically caters to big corporate interests or to his own pocket and, lining his own pockets. And he doesn't really care or do anything that helps the average person. So, the same thing was true in Atlantic City, right? I mean, he had 3 casinos at one point. Every one of them either went bankrupt or closed or was torn down. And he kept saying, and he didn't pay anybody. And we had people literally who he owed millions of dollars to who committed suicide because they never got paid. He doesn't pay people. He was a bum, basically. I don't know how else to describe it. But people thought, oh, this is a billionaire. He must know how to deal with the economy. And so a lot of people said, okay, let's bring him back. But the economy is getting worse every day. So, I don't know what to say other than obviously a lot of people who voted for him, I think at this point, think they made a mistake.
Congressman Frank Pallone, first time on the MeidasTouch Network. It's great to have you on, and we'd love to have you back, and appreciate all you've been doing on the Hill, and keep on fighting.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks a lot.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers.
New Meidas merch. Head to store.meidastouch.com today and get yourself the best pro-democracy gear and show your support. That's store.meidastouch.com.